chess friends, I hope you are doing well. Today, I am very excited to share the news with you that Princess Chess has arrived to compete against me, Stockfish 17. I played against Princess Chess. This game is full of tactics and romantic moves, which I am going to illustrate for you, showing where I sacrificed my knight and bishop against her. So, let's get started without wasting any time. We started the game with c4 and Princess played knight f6 followed by e6. She wanted to play d5 and bring her bishop to b4, delving into the Nimzo-Indian defense, similar to what I illustrated regarding chess traps and tactics in my previous video. She was inspired by that video and wanted to play this opening, therefore, I played e4. You know what? You can't beat the person who teaches you chess, but there are some exceptions, including Magnus, Hansen top-level grandmasters. Princess just played d6, imposing her defense in a small center structure, where I played d4 with more confidence because I am the gangster of chess and want to grab more space and control the center. A couple of moves later, knight c6 followed by bishop e3 happened, where this protected the pawn and of course, black could play knight g4 to attack the bishop. Which Princess actually did. I didn't want to lose my bishop, because it was crucial for attacking through this line, where his bishop could also join the attack. Therefore, the knight moved back, and I played bishop to d3. You can see how my bishop is cutting across the board, putting pressure on black's king side, and my queen could also arrive at c2. Of course, I could play knight g5, and if I get the chance to push my pawns forward, I will send my army into black's territory to reclaim my space. Princess castled and played rook to e8. I followed with queen c2, where I could play e5 and attack her vulnerable pawn. So, the knight moved back, and suddenly, she played bishop to f6. Many players might consider e5 here to open up the bishop's attack. For instance, e5 opens up an attack on the bishop, and after captures and recaptures, you can see that I would have to move my bishop back, and then Princess would play f5, blocking my attack. The problem for me is that my king is still in the center. And if I castle, I'll lose the chance to push my h-pawn forward. Meanwhile, the pawn is attacking my bishop, the line is open, and the rook has a half-open file, which brings me no advantage. So, going back to the position, instead of playing e5, a tempting move, I played knight to e2 after analyzing millions of lines. I wanted to move my knight to a good outpost and put my bishop on c3 to spy on the king side. After a few moves, we had b4, and you can see how my army is dominating the center. Princess played b6 to control the dark squares, and I castled. At this point, noticing that my pawns were strong, some players might consider d5. But I would punish that immediately by capturing the pawn, opening up my queen file. After exchanges, I would play e5, and her bishop would suffer, unable to be effective. The knight would retreat, and my light-squared bishop would dominate. Even f4 and sliding the rook into the game would enhance my attack. So, going back to the position, we see that d5 is a bad choice. That's why Princess, being a brilliant chess girl or rather an AI, played e5. She's strong, but not as strong as me. I'm the new Stockfish 17, and nobody can defeat me. Knight takes e5 could follow if she captures on e5, and my bishop would open up. In this position, I played d5, not to capture but to close the structure. My main priority is to play knight g3 to attack the king side, particularly the g7 pawn. And perhaps bring my other knight to f4 to attack the center. I could reroute my bishop to c3 to spy on the king side. You know, to gain victory, you must observe what your enemy is doing. The c5 and d4 squares could be outposts for black, but they're hard to control because her pieces are paralyzed. Having barely moved since the start, they are like unemployed men in a company. Princess played knight to e7, and I responded with g3. I wanted to play king g2 and push my pawns forward. After a few moves, bishop e7 followed, intending f5 to reroute the knight or open the bishop's file. That's what Princess wanted. She didn't want to lose by getting stuck behind her own structure, so she played a5 to attack my pawn because her kingside was closed. She wanted to open a file, so I closed it. After a few more moves, we were maneuvering pieces, and when she played h5, it became clear that my bishop and queen could jointly attack the pawn. But the advantage for Princess was that she could play g6, move her bishop, and strengthen her defense considerably. Therefore, I played f3 to solidify my attacks on the king side. She played g6, and as my rook came into play and g4 happened, I moved my king back to f1. A move ago, you could see that black couldn't capture the pawn on g4 because I would counter with h5, putting her in a precarious situation. After rook to g8 happened, I moved my king back, and I suddenly played g5. Capturing the pawn on h5 was not possible because after the exchanges, black's structure would be solidified. So, let me share an inspirational quote in sudden with you. Nobody's perfect, we all fall down. What matters most is how quickly we get back up, learn from our mistakes, and move on. So, going back to the position, I played g5 to attack the knight and close the position simultaneously. King e1 followed in the game, as I wanted to play f4 after placing my king in a safe zone. The safe zone is very important, and slowly but surely, I moved my king to the b1 square. I maneuvered my knight from d1 to f2, and we had some exchanges. You could see we were just maneuvering our pieces. There's a big difference between your maneuvering and mine. If I move my pieces back, it's called maneuvering, but if you do it, it might turn into a blunder or mistake. That's the difference between a chess engine and the human mind. As Albert Einstein said, the universe and human folly are infinite, but I'm not sure about the universe. At this point, I wanted to sacrifice my knight to push my pawns forward and attack Princess, otherwise, the game would turn into a draw. And I didn't want that because I was playing as white and wanted to win. I needed to make a concrete move. Can you guess what I did with my knight? It was a brilliant sacrifice. Can you guess where I placed my knight? First of all, knight g4 isn't a good move because after capture, the h5 pawn would face too many troubles and wouldn't help me fully achieve my attack against Princess, so, I played knight to f5, which was a brilliant move. Chess.com even suggests it's brilliant because the queen can't escape, and black is forced to capture the knight. First, you capture the knight with your bishop, and after the exchanges, I would capture the pawn. You can see the bishop would have an open diagonal, and simultaneously, I could play f4, attacking the pawn. The king would become vulnerable in his own home because the knight couldn't arrive to defend. The king's Z+ security would be diminished. Even if you played f6, I would consider f4. And quickly, queen to d1 would come to attack the pawn. Playing queen f7 wouldn't matter because g6 would strike, and queen takes h5 would be inevitable. Black would be finished. Going back to the position, we discovered that capturing the knight with the bishop was a bad choice. Therefore, Princess was forced to accept my sacrifice, and after that, f6 was coming as a threat, so, Princess played f6. She's not a queen yet, just a royal family member of the chess AI world, and I'm the god of chess, where I could play queen d1 to attack the pawn. After a few moves, I doubled up my rooks on the file. After rook a4 and g6, queen d1 followed to attack the pawn. What could you do now? If Magnus-Carlsen were playing with black, he would resign immediately. He wouldn't want to lose his reputation by losing to an AI. I captured the pawn on e5, and she captured the bishop. Capturing the bishop wasn't a good move. Let me show you why. Black could easily capture the pawn on e5, strengthening her defense, and that would be good enough for Princess, leaving me with no attacking chances. So, instead of capturing the bishop, I played e6. I just left the bishop behind. Go, Princess. Live your life brightly. The worst case scenario for her was that my pawn on e6 dominated her position. Her light squared bishop was stuck behind her own structure. Her knight could do nothing, and her queen was helpless. My e6 pawn, now worth 10 points, was dominating her whole army. That's the difference between your pawn and my pawn. You may lose a pawn at the beginning of the game and lose the game, but my pawn was like a beast, paralyzing her whole position. The bishop retreated, and the queen captured it. Queen g7 followed to offer a queen exchange. but I wasn't interested. After sacrificing 2 pieces, who would want to exchange queens? That would be foolish. I wanted to play h6 and push my other pawn, so, rook h1 came on the board to intensify my attacks. Capturing the pawn with her knight wasn't possible because g7 would arrive, and the bishop could retreat, adding pressure on the knight. The rook retreated, h6 came, and after the exchanges, I played rook to g4, her pieces were hopeless, the king could do nothing, the bishop sacrificed itself because, in chess, pieces are meant for sacrifice, whether it's a 1000 rated or 4000 rated game. e7 came on the board, dominating the king side, and rook checks were coming. After a few moves, Princess even sacrificed her bishop, because it was useless, rook checks came, and the black king was soon demolished. She even sacrificed her rook and queen. In the end, I checkmated her with my final blow. She had defeated me many times before, but I finally took my revenge. I am very happy about that, and I won't play a rematch with her because I know Princess won't be capable of challenging me again. If you watched the video to the end, I wish you good luck. Subscribe for more videos. And bye bye, take care, see you soon.